All right, let's get our Facebook groups up in here before it's officially time to take off. We got some spinning wheels going here. 1 and 2. Give it a second to breathe. Got the eyeballs coming in, and welcome in, welcome in, welcome in. It is Wednesday night, the 28th of December, and man, we are, I can't believe how soon it's going to be to 2023. I am Nick Kendell, and joined by, as always, on these Wednesday night Mile High Insiders show, Luke Patterson. Luke, how are your holidays? I know it's got to be a pretty magical time of year with a young kid.
Yeah, it was fun. Watching the game was horrible, like everybody else,
What
right?
game?
I mean, that's a given. It's a game we're still talking about. Got a lot of attention today from some players that spoke on the mic that were captured in some videos, a shoving match. We'll get into all of that, but it was good, man. Had a good set of holidays. Got to celebrate with my family, and what more could you want? We had snow on the ground, which was nice. So it wasn't really a white Christmas, but it felt Christmassy. Believe it or not, it's raining right now, and then it's going to snow tonight. So the weather here in Colorado, absolutely crazy, just like those damn Denver Broncos. Crazy.
Crazy times, fights, new owner coming in, flexing his muscles, the whole Penner press conference yesterday. Now we got the interim head coach, Rosberg, out there. I mean, it's just never a dull moment in Broncos country. Sometimes I wish it was a little bit more, that we're constantly on stormy seas, it feels like out here covering
Yeah.
this team. But what
Yeah,
can you
those
do?
damn stormy seas too. They got me in the polar vortex last week. The Wi-Fi completely shut down, and Tom shut out like an absolute champ with Scott. So appreciate everybody for bearing with me. But how about you, man? You were in the cabin with some friends, doing some hiking, enjoying nature, and staying away from the TV and those damn Broncos. But yeah, Merry Christmas.
Yeah, it was a good time. My wife and I got each other some nice surprise gifts, and the mother-in-law was here, just left, but it was a good time. And it really made the Broncos' embarrassment on Christmas Day all the less embarrassing. I mean, God, having Patrick Starr roast Russell Wilson, that had to be, maybe we keep saying, is this rock bottom? There was a SpongeBob episode called Rock Bottom, and I felt like we were there. But we got Ted coming in here, kicking us off here with the super chats, $4.99. Ted Wunderlich coming in saying, imagine moments after the Judy touchdown in Seattle week 1, someone tells you, don't worry, by week 17, Josh Rosberg will be the interim head coach on this team. I mean,
I'll do you one
unbelievable.
better, Ted. He didn't join until week 3, brother.
Yeah,
Like, you got a guy who wasn't even here in training camp. You got a guy that was retired for years. And Jerry Rosburg, I mean, retired 4 years ago, talked into coming back. We found out, shocker, it wasn't Nathaniel Hackett that hired him. It was George Payton. That was later revealed earlier today. It's just one of those things where Ted isn't making this up. I mean, Jerry Jeudy, that Seattle Seahawks game, week 1, we're like, all right, bumpy, embarrassing. We get it. Things are going to get fixed. Here we are, 2 games left on the schedule. Nathaniel Hackett is out. And yeah, I guess let's start there. What's your reaction? Nathaniel Hackett out the day after Christmas. So I guess he didn't get fired on his day off. Technically, they had a heart. They let him land. But Greg Penner ultimately making that decision to let Nathaniel Hackett go.
Feel like it had to happen after how embarrassing that game was. That's what I saw. The TV ratings for that one, 25.2 million people tuned in to see that game. The Broncos get embarrassed. Not only, beat by a horrible Rams team that's also littered with injuries. I mean, no Aaron Donald, no Cooper Kupp, no Matt
Thank
Stafford.
God.
Just, God. Yeah, it just getting
Like,
embarrassed. And then you have,
you don't want to thank God for injuries, but could you imagine if Aaron Donald was out there? I mean, like, good Lord. Dalton
yeah.
Reisner shoving Brett Rippon was the most exciting thing that happened for the Broncos in that game. I mean, Aaron Donald, it would have been an absolute murder scene if that guy was out
Yeah.
there. So the Broncos lucked on that fact.
Yeah, really, really ugly in that regard. And then you also have the shoving on the sideline, the Randy Gregory stuff. I mean, it was an embarrassing game from top to bottom. Quarterback playing horrific football. It's just, I think it had to be done. This was the first one where it's like, okay, maybe the locker room isn't toxic toward the coach in there, but there's not a certain level of revere or respect in there to Nathaniel Hackett. We love him. He's a great guy. Brought the culture in here. Hanging out. Well, a little bit more buddy buddies, like almost like a player coach out there sometimes. So had to be
Yeah,
done. And
very likable, right? That's one
yeah,
thing you could say about him, unlike Grandpa Vic Fangio, who, everybody's like, look, he's grouchy, only stick to the defense. He's taking Von Miller's speaker. I mean, all this kind of stuff. That wasn't Nathaniel Hackett. You heard Randy Gregory talk today earlier at UC Health Training Center, and he's like, man, I feel bad. I feel really upset. I'm bummed. I know it's a business, but Me and Hackett came in together, and that's one thing you could say, and Nathaniel Hackett can say moving forward, was he stayed authentic to who he is. He is not a great leader, but he is very positive. He develops relationships with these guys, and you wish the best for him moving forward. But a scapegoat, the first scapegoat of many. Patrick Wiltsey coming in saying, "Good afternoon, gents. Time for a Hawaiian vacation." Maybe Patrick. Maybe Patrick saw some of those plays that we saw against the Rams. Looks like certain business decisions were certainly made from more than one player on the defense, on the offense as well. That's just what you get when these players have had enough, Patrick. I mean, Broncos country has had enough. You guys know it. Nick, you know it too. It's bad when Russell Wilson is ultimately causing a lot of the frustration that is happening between one Dalton Reisner and Brett Rippon on the sidelines and that whole shoving match. I mean, good Lord. It's just a horrible look. Greg Penner absolutely embarrassed in front of his cousins, right? Or cousin-in-laws, the Cronkies, had to make the move.
Yeah, it's just, I think they would have loved to have him back. I don't think that because of George Payton still here, because of the Russell Wilson contract, this is not a great alignment of all the pillars of the franchise right now, but they had to move on. So it is what it is, and hopefully we'll get a good coach on in here and hopefully finish out the season strong. I did appreciate the interim press conference today, talking about, finishing out the season strong, 2 games. I mean, the Broncos will be, what do you think the Chiefs are 16-point favorites right now? Something like that. They'll probably be 7-point dogs at home versus the Chargers, but maybe you go out swinging, don't go out embarrassing like you had against you saw that this week against the Rams.
Yeah, Jerry Rosburg was asked that today, Nick. Is Russell Wilson going to be the guy moving forward? And he basically said, yeah, the next 2 weeks, it's his job. It's our job as coaches to put him in a position that he can play good football. So Russell Wilson, they don't seem to be shutting it down, barring some sort of crazy injury. Want to say what's up to our friend Ashley. She says, good evening, fellas in Broncos country. I am happy to hear that Rosburg cares about beating the Chiefs. Let's see if he can do it now. Happy holidays and go Broncos. That's a big one. Nathaniel Hackett loved to talk about how his dad coached for every team under the sun in the AFC West, except for the Chargers, I think. Yeah, you got some good vibes. At least I did from Jerry Rosburg today. I thought it was weird, his 12-minute opening statement on the same day that Teddy Bridgewater's named the starter for Miami, probably, right? And he used to give those opening statements as well. But it finally feels like there's an adult in the room. It just came too little too late with these 2 weeks. I don't know that there's much that Jerry Rosburg can ultimately do if he wants to be the head coach of this team moving forward. I don't know that he'll even be considered. I don't know if it's something he wants. He didn't really answer that question today either. But what was your overall impression of new Broncos interim head coach Jerry Rosburg?
I thought it was interesting. The last bit of the press conference went off about the medicine that he's investing in and been training in, the hyperbolic chamber stuff in there and trying to bring it to the NFL. But I digress.
He's a cool cat.
Yeah, he's an interesting dude. Obviously been around the league and has multiple interests. I think the number one thing was that we found out from this one is that he relieved Dwayne Stukes and Butch Berry of their positions, and that came from him. Said that talked about how the special teams was ranked 32nd in a analytic that he greatly values. AKA, he's talking about Football Outsiders and their DVOA. Everyone roll their eyes at Nick and his acronyms for the advanced analytics.
I thought about you today when he had mentioned that. And absolutely. I'm like, boom, there it is. Nick Kendell at Nick Kendell MHH.
Vindication. But then he also went on and talked about moving on the offensive line, needing a shakeup there, and then spoke highly about Butch Berry, the person, from his experiences with him and enjoying him. Didn't hear any. I don't think he mentioned Dwayne Stukes when
not he the was name, not at all.
Not the name, no. But he mentioned Butch Berry and had a paragraph about it.
Yeah, and for some context, for Broncos country, when Jerry Rosburg was brought in by George Payton, not Nathaniel Hackett, something we told you on this show, we speculated at least. It's one of those deals where Jerry Rosburg talked about it today. He's like, I've never been in a position like this where everyone was so welcoming. But then again, it's like, well, you've never been in like a position like this, period, dude. You were retired doing healthcare stuff, gearing up for a second career. I don't know, definitely interest and respect the guy for that, but it's just odd. The whole thing is odd. Dwayne Stukes didn't want him here. That was fairly obvious earlier in the season in at least one press conference. So yeah, there was some bashing of the heads, I think, behind the scenes a little bit, and it's ultimately a different role for Jerry Rosburg moving forward. Alejandro Milan coming in. Thank you for being patient with us here on MHI, saying, I think the Walton Penner Group needs to make the move for Jim Harbaugh or Sean Payton and give him the power that the GM has, money talks.
I mean, I don't think Sean Payton's coming here, but Jim Harbaugh, I think, is a possibility. And I think the Broncos, if they have their druthers, Jim Harbaugh will be the coach next year. It's not going to be the Broncos saying that we wanted to go a
Ooh.
different direction than Jim Harbaugh. It's going to be Jim Harbaugh turning down the Broncos and the Russell Wilson contract. So don't let they're going to figure it out through back channels first. Don't let anybody spin it the other way. Oh, the Broncos really weren't that interested in Jim Harbaugh. No, they're very interested right now, and they're going to give him potentially final say on the roster. We already saw George Paton concede some power in this previous press conference. I think this sets up well for a Jim Harbaugh to come in. Maybe you keep George Paton. Maybe you fire him after the draft. I mean, that's not unprecedented when you have this sort of dynamic with a new head coach coming in. So will be interesting to see what happens here. But I would love Jim Harbaugh. If you can bring him in, he's my number one guy. I think he brings everywhere he's gone. He's turned teams around and built winners with talent disadvantages, and he wears teams. It seems like he's worn in the professional setting some teams a little bit raw, but I think that was a lot of power dynamic stuff with Trent Baalke, where they were both vying for more and more power with a team that was exceedingly successful there with the Alex Smith and Kaepernick 49ers. So now if he comes in here, he's the dude. I mean, he's going to be the dude. There's not going to be the power balance there because obviously the owner signs the checks. He's number one. And then it's probably Jim Harbaugh after that.
Ooh, Jim Harbaugh. He's a different cat, that's for sure. He definitely does things his way, so I respect him for that. Would him and Russell Wilson get along? I don't know, but I definitely want to find out if that's the case because two strong personalities, they're definitely going to clash. And last time I checked, Jim Harbaugh doesn't just get up on the mic and say what he's supposed to say. He actually tells you what he thinks, for better or for worse. For better or for worse, we've missed this guy, Mohamed Badri.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for weighing in, brother. 1999 super chat. Happy holidays. Saying the Smooth Killer and Braun in the house. I miss y'all. Been dealing with some personal stuff, but it's good to see you guys. Much love, my friends. Much love to you, Muhammad, baby Malik, and the rest of your family. Hopefully you guys are doing well.
Yeah, hopefully everything is well with the personal stuff going on there. Not ideal, but glad to see you coming in and hope you had a good holiday season. Mo, we always appreciate you coming in and joining us today. So getting back into this, Luke, did you take anything from any takeaways? So obviously we had the announcement that it was Rosberg's call to make those movements at the coaching position. Any reason you didn't get rid of a guy like, Justin Outen or a few other names? I mean, why these two?
Yeah, these two, because Butch Berry was your problem since day one. He never got along with the players in that room, something that we've talked about on the show repeatedly. I've brought up since training camp. The offensive line kind of got a breather today. At least that's my perception based on some things that I've heard. And they had a great practice for you Vance Joseph fans. Russell Wilson will tell you all about it. It's one of these things for me with Jerry Rosburg. He's the interim head coach. It feels like an adult's in the room. I'm good with it, but he doesn't want to meddle. And that's why Justin Outen is still in the house. That's why Clint Kubiak is still going to continue to call the plays, at least for the next 2 weeks. We'll see what things look like moving forward. But if you're the Walton Penner group, and specifically Greg Penner, you should have an idea of who you're going after. And I think right now it's those 4 big targets. We talked about Jim Harbaugh. I think Frank Reich is in there, Dan Quinn, and of course, Sean Payton. Heard a little bit today. I don't know if there's any truth to it, but the rumor mill is definitely always on the move. Sean Payton, possibly some Saints smoke there, maybe some interest in returning to the Saints. I don't know why he would. I think a team would be, I think a team would definitely be happy to have him, but he's got the pick if he ultimately wants to be the Chargers head coach, if he wants to be the Rams head coach. Don't know what's going to happen with the Chargers since it looks like they're postseason bound. But money talks. We had one of our friends say that earlier on this show, and I think what Greg Penner wants, he's going to get. He should have a good idea of who he wants. I think it's probably down to 2 guys this early. I mean, we still have 2 weeks to go, but he's known for how long, Nick, that he was going to fire Nathaniel Hackett. I mean, he talked about it yesterday, saying it wasn't ideal to get rid of him. We wished we could have figured it out, but it was all the extracurricular stuff going on with that Rams game that was just a mess and made it embarrassing.
Very much embarrassing, and Naj is also embarrassed, but he's still coming in and supporting us. 1999. Thank you so much, Naj.
Happy
38
holidays.
years as a Broncos fan, and this is the worst season in his opinion. The expectations being the national joke, loss of hope being competitive in the West, etc. Still as unlikely as it is. I think these guys can go win this week. Any given Sunday, right, Naj? I would
No.
not bet on the Broncos. I mean, but crazy things happen. But I mean, in Arrowhead, I also think the other thing is that this is probably a Chiefs team that's probably a little bit annoyed with how that last game went. They were cruising and then it got close. Probably, they're gonna probably try to sweep the leg in this one pretty early and keep piling on them. So I, God bless you. And I'm gonna tune in too. And there's always that chance. But probably this is the hardest game of the year, and this is a team that is falling off
Yeah.
dramatically.
Well, Naj's right. I mean, look, this is the 4th coaching search since Peyton Manning ultimately walked out the door. I mean, something has got to change here. I get ownership was in flux for a long time, and God rest Mr. B. But it's just one of those things where Broncos country's had enough. I mean, guys and gals, families across America were flipping over to watch basketball, to watch the Denver Nuggets on Christmas instead of the Broncos. It was that bad. It was over in the first quarter. We all knew it, and yet we just are gluttons for punishment, and we kept watching it. Nathaniel Hackett made NFL history, I guess, top 5, at least in 5th quickest head coach to be dismissed by his team. And he never even made it to Arrowhead, where his dad used to coach. Never going to have that nostalgic moment, Nathaniel. But it's just one of these things, Nick, where Broncos country, they've had enough. They've had enough of trying to be sold. I feel like this next head coaching candidate, I don't know if I'm willing to go on with Jim Harbaugh yet. I don't know who I want. It's that early. I'm still trying to digest what is happening today with this interim head coach. I mean, that's how bizarre things are. It feels like things have changed overnight dramatically, but we know they're not going to stay this way. So they're in a state of flux, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, new head coach coming in this offseason. Maybe it won't be a new head coach. Maybe they'll promote Ejiro Evero. We do know that they're going to interview him, and we're gonna find out about how interesting this and appealing this Broncos head coaching gig. Obviously, they can throw money at it. It's a storied franchise, but it's a tough ask with the way Russell Wilson's playing right now, the contract that he's attached to, and just the state of the AFC West. I mean, would you rather be playing against Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert 4 times a year and having to have better records than them for you to have success? Or would you rather go to the NFC South right now, where it looks like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the New Orleans Saints are going to implode, and you have Atlanta, who's up and coming. But I mean, that Carolina team, they beat up on some teams, and they've had Sam Darnold and PJ. Was it Walker? PJ Walker is their quarterback.
Yeah.
I mean, there's obviously different degrees of situations out there, and we'll find out how much just throwing money at it can fix it for the Broncos.
Don't forget Jarrett Stidham, dude. AFC West
yeah.
quarterbacks. I mean, Jarrett Stidham named the Raiders quarterback today. I think right before we got on air, I was reading a story. Don't know what it's worth. Derek Carr stepping away from the team from this benching. Is that so easy breezy? I'm out of here for Derek Carr. I don't.
I think it has something to do with playtime and games guarantees in the contract of Derek Carr. So this is a sign that he's out after this season. I think they can move on from him with very little dead cap, if any. Right. $5 million. Is that what Scott's saying there? Yeah. So only $5 million. He's going to be elsewhere next year. I would be pretty shocked if he's not like a New York Jet. That seems like an obvious.
That's what I'm saying too. Jets or Colts, right?
Yep. So will be really interesting there, and it's a solid quarterback, obviously not elite, but solid that you can pay probably only solid money to and not have to give up any draft assets. Could make sense for some teams. So yeah, luckily the Broncos aren't the only team in the West in some sort of disarray and an embarrassment, but unfortunately the Broncos have been taking the cake in that one this season.
Phil McLaughlin coming in saying good evening and happy holidays, Luke, Nick, and Deacon Scott. I am glad to hear that Randy Gregory can play. Hashtag go Broncos, MHH for life. Randy Gregory, Nick, I've been meaning to talk to you about this one. Man, I don't know what happened with him, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce the gentleman's name, the offensive lineman for the Rams. You probably got it. You're usually all over these hard names that I struggle on.
I didn't recognize the name when I saw it.
Oh, yeah, man. Well, they're going at each other all game. I mean, Randy Gregory only played 11 snaps, less than 20% of the entire game. And it's getting flags, throwing punches after the game, got hit back, got suspended. An appeal happened. Suspension was reduced to a heavy fine. I think is what it was, like a fine that would make us have a heart attack and die. But probably. Maybe, Randy Gregory has gotten used to over the years. So he is technically available to play against the Chiefs. Don't know if he will with that injury he's still nursing. I don't think he practiced today, along with Baron Browning, and we'll also get you guys that injury report as well. What'd you make about Randy Gregory, that whole mess, the appeal? I was shocked that the appeal actually went in his favor, and he's like, all right, yeah, we're going to show you guys a little bit of grace here by the NFL.
Yeah, that was pretty surprising now that they didn't give that to him, and I'm curious if that does anything for his contract and his guarantees. I mean, there could have been a chance if he was suspended, maybe some of those guarantees get voided, and then you have a little bit more of an option this offseason if you wanted to move on. But gets it appeals it, and wins the appeal. So he'll be back in theory. He's dealing with an injury. Honestly, if I was the Broncos, I would just shut him down for the rest of the season.
Mm-hmm.
He's obviously not healthy. These games don't mean anything for somebody like him at this point. You're probably going to be running a new defensive scheme next year. Just shut him down. There's no point. Get reps for Jonathan Cooper and Nick Benito. I mean, God, I haven't even recognized number 42 out there this season, but 2 games to go out there and figure some stuff out.
Yeah, I agree. You got to have Randy Gregory in the building for the offseason. That's something you have to have. He came in injured as a Bronco, and we could still talk about that and why that happened. And look, it's just the thing with me and Randy Gregory, and I told you right before the show started, I liked his press conference today. I liked some of the things he said, but I thought there were also some excuses in there. And when you think back to when the Broncos were trying to court Randy Gregory, right, and it came down to that 11th hour, if you will, with the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys had stated in their offer that their contract would be based off of no suspensions. And if there were suspensions, money would be voided. Well, here we are with Randy Gregory, and we're having the conversation. Something he said wouldn't happen. He said he was mature. He said he learned from those mistakes. And here we are with Randy Gregory. So something that ultimately has kind of been the question mark, at least earlier before he got here. One, could he stay healthy? 2, is he a problem? And I'm not going to say he's a problem, but he's definitely showing his old habits. He gets very frustrated very easy. And for a guy that's a veteran in the NFL, you can't be swinging on dudes. And you should know that, especially when they're wearing a helmet after the game. I think Baker was kind of trying to I saw an interview where this young lady was talking to him post game, and he was like, "Oh, watch out now!" And it looked like there was the little skirmish right in front of him. And it's like, man, that's no way to represent your franchise after you guys just got your tails kicked in. So a little weird, man. But hey, it's the Denver Broncos. It wouldn't be anything if it wasn't embarrassing, right?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, just they're a loser franchise right now, and this is what loser franchises do. It sucks, but it's what they are. And it's kind of the thing where Randy Gregory, if you had a really strong team and a good locker room that was winning, then he probably wouldn't be an issue. He'd be happy to be there. But it's similar to Aqib Talib. When things are off the rail and the season's falling apart, some guys like that, go into a little bit of extracurriculars and lose a little bit of their discipline. So it's unfortunate that it happened, and it was an ugly thing, and it makes you just like, come on, Randy, because I knew there was questions about his maturity and what not coming, not only with Dallas, but coming out of Nebraska as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like a very, in his interview today also seems like an intelligent guy, but maybe just a little bit
Yeah.
emotional. So it's
A
frustrating.
bonehead. Yeah,
And
bonehead, because he comes off so well spoken. I think he speaks from the heart. Yeah, like you said, he's sharp. It's
authentic.
just like,
Yeah.
come on, man. Come on, man. You're better than that. Gerald Garcia coming in here. Reisner versus Rippon. Let's talk some of that. Dalton Reisner, Brett Rippon. It was caught on the camera, not by the official broadcast crew, even though they mentioned it and went back and showed it a little bit. But Russell Wilson had just taken a sack. It appeared that Brett Rippon was trying to run up to the offensive line and say, help him up. I think Dalton Reisner misinterpreted that for keep him up. And he's telling offensive linemen, keep him up after they're just coming off of a field in which their quarterback is the most quarterback sacked in the NFL. Man, it's definitely one of those cringe moments because something bad is probably going to happen. All that really happened, and it seems very dramatic. Brett got in Dalton's face, keep him up a little bit. Dalton shoved him back. Latavius Murray comes in, shoves Dalton, a minor shoving match. It definitely made its rounds on social media, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's an ugly scene, no doubt, and you hope that players would have a little bit of wherewithal not to do that in that situation. That said, the context of that, because it was a game, you don't see it that often, but you see that stuff happen all the time in practice and like when things get heated. So let's hear what Reisner has to say about this little
Yeah,
skirmish.
Brett's my boy. One thing that hasn't been, covered at all is me and Brett, making up a minute later and hugging. And that's just how the media goes, which is fine. But on Sunday, there's a lot of frustration, losing 51-14, and we're both very competitive guys. We want to win. We want to win out there. We're frustrated with what's going on. Emotions are running high, and I should not have pushed my boy. I shouldn't have done that. I got to put that on myself. I can't let frustration and emotion get to me. But at the end of the day, that's one of my best friends, man. Me and him are making jokes about pushing each other harder, and we just both care. We both care a lot about winning, and we're both frustrated. And we made up right after, but that just hasn't been the story that's been put out there, and that's fine. We've been boys since. Got over it right away. Been moving forward, ready to beat the Chiefs.
Ready to beat the Chiefs. You're funny, Dalton. Yeah, it's one of those deals, man, where it does happen. You're exactly right. Frustration, tempers run hot. It's nice to know that someone cares. At least that's something that like my dad and I were saying when we're watching this game on Christmas. I'm like, man, nice to see some emotion out of somebody. And I'm not going to say that what Dalton Reisner did was great. It's not like it was the worst thing in the world. Okay. People commit crimes every day, and this guy just shoved the backup quarterback. But Brett Rippon, shut your mouth is what I'm going to tell you, dude. This offensive line has had enough. I get it. Dalton Reisner has his own issues as well. But look, man, don't go up to the O-line if you're the backup quarterback telling them to pick Russell Wilson off the ground. A lot of those sacks are ultimately on Russell Wilson, something we're seeing week in and week out. He holds on to the ball way too long. He seems to have lost his mobility. He's top heavy. I've got no idea how he is slowed down this fast. And I'm talking literally slowed down. He doesn't look like himself.
Yeah.
We could talk about progressions all day. I'm talking pure speed and quickness. He might be great in footwork drills. So was Jerome Bettis. But it's one of these deals, Nick, where Broncos country's tired of seeing this. And to see somebody care the way Dalton Reisner cared, I was okay with it.
Yeah, I think it's not a good look, but it's also not a big deal. So
Yeah,
can
totally.
move
Could
on
you
from
have
that.
gone without it? You bet. Does it ruin you for life? No. And I've seen the comments, and I guess I'll just ask you about it. People are saying that's your Walter Payton Man of the Year candidate, and it's like, yeah, that is. This man has done a lot for communities, not only in this state but in other states. And I get it; it's a bad look, but in no way should this tarnish his Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee. I think I don't see it as a big deal there.
Yeah, again, it's ugly. It's not great that it happened. People are fixing on it because they're pissed right now and they're latching on to anything they can, which I get. But it's just going to be a little footnote in this game history looking back on it, and we're going to remember more of just the embarrassment and the interceptions and the bad play from Russell Wilson. It being the termination of Nathaniel Hackett's career in Denver.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ross Hester coming in here real quick with a $5 super. Thank you so much for joining MHI with Scott, Nick, and yours truly, saying exactly. Sebastian Joseph Day and Drew Tranquil for the Chargers got into it on Monday Night Football, but because they're winning, it's not talked about. You're exactly right, Ross. This is what bad teams do. Nick said it a few minutes ago, and when that's the most excitement of the game, between Randy Gregory punching a Rams player with a helmet on and Dalton Reisner, a little shoving match with the backup quarterback, and then starting running back shoving him. I mean, that's it. And that's why it's focused in on. It's just adding another layer to this mess. It's like a lasagna mess, man, where you add those layers and it's supposed to be something beautiful when you get to the top. Man, it's ugly up here with this nasty ass lasagna the Broncos are selling. Broncos country definitely deserves better. And while I can appreciate Greg Penner coming out and apologizing yesterday, it was awkward. Absolutely, with George Payton. He's been stripped of some power. And I wanted to ask you before we move forward in this show, Nathaniel Hackett, he's out. George Payton, he's hot seat, right? Hot seat guy.
For sure.
The pressure couldn't be more intense for George Payton right now. But when Greg Penner is saying that the head coach, the next head coach, will answer to him, man, that really shook me because I'm thinking, well, what do you need the GM for? I get that you don't know football, but if you're saying I don't trust you enough to hire the head coach on your own, head coach is going to answer to me. How does Greg Penner know how to manage a head coach in the NFL? Something he's never done.
You hope that he surrounds himself with smart people and hires smart people around him that can guide him, and he can use his business sense and just that leadership skill to put this team and right this team's current trajectory. But you don't know. We don't have enough data. With general managers, typically it takes 4 or 5 years to really get an idea of what they've built and who they are. Coaches 2 or 3, ownership, we're probably talking decade to really know how good they are as an owner. So it definitely was surprising. Also, Penner saying that, oh, the head coach will answer to me. That's normal for most teams. I'm like, I don't think most teams are work that way. Typically, there's a little bit of pecking order from the head coach to the general manager. You do answer to the owner, but the owner more so is supporting as they can, getting the infrastructure in place, finances that teams need, resources to do what they want to do. But interesting. We got Money More coming in. Mr. Shamwow saying this isn't clickbait. I can't imagine Russell Wilson having a strong reaction to anything. Yeah, I don't know about Russell Wilson's strong reaction. He obviously said that he was very bummed about it. The guys love Hackett.
Devastated, Nick. He was devastated. Money Morrissey. It wasn't clickbait, brother, even though we got you. It's one of those things, man, where he comes up there and they're like, how do you feel about it? He's like, I'm devastated. Devastated. I'm not buying it. I call baloney. Russell Wilson was not devastated. No, he doesn't feel good right now. I don't think he's happy. I don't think he's doing laps, even though there are hilarious and great memes out there that suggest that. What was your read on that, man? I mean, devastated. Do you believe him that he is devastated about Nathaniel Hackett being fired?
I bet you he's bummed about it. And, he had what he wanted. He was traded from Seattle because he wanted more power, more say in the offense, more creative control in the scheme, et cetera, et cetera. The guys being in there, the personnel decisions, he wanted to be in there and cultivate that, let Russ cook. And it's gone about as bad as you could possibly hope. Now, he talked about today, I wouldn't say it's not an excuse, but he did immediately go to, what do we have? Like 24 guys, 30 guys on the IR this season, quickly pointing to injuries, which I do think is probably the biggest thing this season for this team being this bad, considering how many one possession losses they have. But still, to me, he said a lot of things that were company line, coached up. But man, he just looked so defeated. He looked dead inside, just delivering these. I mean, he looks so tired too. I can't even imagine. I know he's taking it pretty tough. He does want to win. I don't know if he sees himself as being the biggest problem. I mean, I'm not going to act like I'm in Russell Wilson's head on this one. But he said a lot of the right things, but reading the body language and just the facial expression, my guy looks exhausted.
He looks exhausted, and I don't know how authentic he is. I'm not going to call him a phony or a fake like a lot of others are doing right now. But look, he's saying, I got to be the best version of me. Talks about the dark days, talks about Super Bowls and playing in multiple I mean, I am done. Russ, I know what you did. We all know what you did. That's why we were thrilled. And we all went out and bought your jerseys and bought in. But we're not getting any return on investment. And it drives me crazy when he says, I know I've got to play better. And nobody down there wants to ask how. How can you play better? What steps are you going to do this week that have been different? No, you don't need to tell us every little intricate detail of your new offense without Nathaniel Hackett. But it's just one of those things where I think he has a chance to eat some humble pie, and he never really wants to take a bite. That bothers me. It bothers a lot of Broncos country right now. And I do not think Russell Wilson is washed yet. But I have never seen a player drop off like this. That's what everybody is saying across any platform that covers the Denver Broncos, national or local. It is bizarre. I don't know if it's a mental thing. I think it could be a little bit of a mental thing and a physical thing. He's changed states, changed homes, changed lives really in a certain aspect, but so do other guys all the time, and they have their success. I just wish he could look in the mirror and instead of the team 3 stuff, what happened to Russ, man? Because we would all be happy with just Russ. I don't need the celebrity. I don't need anything else, man. I don't need Mr. Unlimited. I want Russell Wilson.
Yeah. But who is Russell Wilson at this point, right? Big topic of conversation. People change, things change. Shannon Sharpe went in on him today, going back to Seattle. I mean, we might have to pull up that clip and have to analyze that one at some point. Yeah. But first, we got to say hello to Jacob Chase coming in, $10 super, saying, I have a theory as to why Evero turned down the interim head coaching job. Nobody says his name right. He said it at the introductory press conference. His last name, his first name are actually rhyme. Ejiro Evero. I think it's Ejiro Evero, but Scott always corrects me on that, so I'm going to push Scott on that one. But Scott makes it a habit of getting these guys' names right because he had to work, interpersonally with them for a while. So I think it's Ejiro Evero. I might be pronouncing the first name somewhat incorrectly as well, but
Ejiro Evero is how I've always said it.
Forever Evero has been my little monicum to remember how it is.
Well, yeah, Jake, I absolutely love that, man, and happy holidays to you and yours. Thank you so much for tuning in to MHI. Yeah, that's interesting. Obviously, Jacob's referencing that defensive coordinator Ejiro Evero, just say it fast so no one can correct you, turned down an offer to be the interim head coach. It makes sense. You only have things to lose and for things to go against you, especially playing Kansas City on the road with only 2 weeks left. Could things have been different if he was given a chance earlier? I'm not sure. It would have been interesting to try to find out. On the field job interview really is what we would be looking at, but I would be surprised really how quickly the Broncos interview him, if at all. He could decline to interview them and go with one of the first or second teams that ultimately offers him a position. I think that we are all assuming that's going to be the case, but man, egg on your face galore for the Denver Broncos when Ejiro Evero is saying, no, I'm good, but Jerry Rosburg, maybe you should talk to him, because who would it have been if it wasn't Jerry Rosburg? And I know there are tons of questions about that. I do think Jerry Rosburg handled himself well today, but like a 12-minute opening statement kind of told me like, this is my moment to have the podium and kind of give you my candidacy and the things that I see in football and how I love the Denver Broncos in my short time here, which I respect him for. He's a lifer. He probably never thought he would ever be in this position. And how cool would it be to try to head coach a football team? It'd be stressful. You're already around there, something you've never done, but you've got 2 weeks to do it. Why the hell not? What do you have to lose if you're Jerry Rosburg? You were retired 4 years ago trying to ultimately transition to a healthcare career before week 3 when George Payton called.
I mean, there's no expectations for him. He can go out there and no matter what, nobody expects anything. If you go out there and only lose by 10 to the Chiefs, people would be like, wow, Rosberg, good job. That's
people
not bad.
Would be saying, hey, maybe he needs a look, and then you beat the Chargers at home.
God,
I mean,
I
hope not either, but let's just play devil's advocate. Big if, but God forbid they do beat the Chiefs, they do beat the Chargers, then the Broncos would look kind of horrible if they didn't show that interest and want to go after him. Would he want to do the same thing? That's a little hard to tell. Phil McLaughlin coming in here with some more support. Thanks, Phil. So do you guys think it's a little scary that Greg Penner wants to run the show? Yes, we pray that he has football input. I do not want a Jerry Jones. And Nick, before we get your take on this, Phil, it's very interesting. You're talking about Jerry Jones in this, right? Because Greg Penner had said, what I've learned is that it's a typical relationship for CEO to ultimately reside over the head coach. And while that might ultimately be true, I think he's missing a step with GM. And I wonder if Jerry Jones had talked to him down at the owners meeting just a week or two ago, and he's asking for some support, asking for some advice amongst his owners. And Jerry grabs him around the neck, is like, all right, rich boy, this is how we're going to do it. You need to be the head dog of this team, and the head coach has to answer to you or else. A little scary, maybe, but it definitely bothers me that George Payton has been demoted, because what's the point of him being here? Otherwise, just demote him to your scouting department. Is that why he's here? Because he's a scout?
I mean, this happens sometimes with dynamics of head coaches and general managers. Now, you don't typically see guys lose power and stick around. Typically, they will move on. But I mean, we've seen multiple general managers. The one that immediately comes to mind for me is the power dynamic between John Gruden and Mike Mayock. Mike Mayock handled a lot of the draft stuff and did the boots on the ground stuff and, talent acquisition, but it was John Gruden's final call. This is what I want. This is the guy that I want. Work it out. And that could be very much the case for who comes in next for the Broncos. It could be Jim Harbaugh with the general manager, still doing general manager stuff, but not having that final say in the roster construction. So again, we'll see what happens here. But the fact that he already relented some ground in terms of power with the head coaching search here and who the head coach is going to answer makes me think that it is a possibility for you bring in a head coach and have that dynamic.
It's scary for me because there's so much of an unknown, right? We're just starting to get a glimpse of who Greg Penner is going to be. This is probably the only third time he's spoken publicly since becoming the CEO of the Denver Broncos and part of this ownership group. I mean, we have no idea where he wants to go. I did pick up that he's not happy. That's for sure. I'm not like through the moon with that press conference. I think Greg did a fine job. I'm not going to beat him up one way or another, but I'm tired of hearing about it. Go show me. I mean, that's just it. Like, this has to be a splash, and no disrespect to Frank Reich, but that doesn't do it for me. And I don't think Dan Quinn, that's going to do it for a lot of people either. And I think both guys are definitely competent in football. They have more football knowledge and coaching experience or anything football related than I ever will. So no disrespect, but Broncos country needs a big splash. I've heard, obviously, Mike Shanahan, go get Mike Shanahan. I do not think that's possible. I really don't. Would I love it if that was the case? Yeah, sign me up. But as long as Kyle is with the San Francisco 49ers, Mike has continually said throughout other channels, not directly into a microphone or into a TV, but he's not interested in coaching against Kyle as a head coach in the NFL. So I don't think Mike Shanahan's there. That leaves two guys, Sean Payton, Jim Harbaugh.
Yep, those are the big two. Though some people will say Dan Quinn and Frank Reich as well. I don't think Sean Payton's coming here, and it does sound like they want to go with a more experienced head coach. I think that's somewhat foolish to limit your search. Obviously, it can be a benefit for whoever you're looking for, but doesn't have to be. I mean, you can have great head coaches that are first timers, but just got to get the right guy in here, and we'll see how it goes. Luckily, this Broncos team is flush with cash. Throw money at the problem, and there's no salary cap on your coach spending. So hopefully they can figure that out and lure somebody in here. Grant coming in here, talk about throwing cash at it, $5 coming at us. Thank you so much, Grant. Saying Shannon Sharpe is right. Russell needs to be a football player. He can't be above the team.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's frustrating. Shannon Sharpe went off on Russell Wilson today on his show with Skip Bayless, whatever show it is. I enjoy Shannon.
Skip.
Undisputed. There we go. Skip.
Skip, come on,
love Shannon.
Skip.
He's funny. But
Uncle
yeah,
Shay
he went
Shay.
off today on Russell Wilson talking about how, teammates in Denver don't like him, don't give a hoot what they say when the cameras are on or mics are in front of them. He's not liked in the locker room. He's not connected to the players at all. He's not in the locker room. They feel very detached from him. Coaching staff was an issue with him. Power dynamics was a issue with him, and that he's too focused on the celebrity status and, the money and the Sierra and everything like that. Got pretty personal, which again, it's stuff that you and I think, and you could speculate on, but Shannon Sharpe almost spoke on it with authority. And I know that's, that's somewhat what Undisputed is, the hot takes on there, but it was pretty vehement attack on Russell Wilson.
Yeah, well, was it deserving? Because I'm not going to deny that it was an attack. You bet it was an attack. It was a criticism, but, does Russell Wilson deserve it? I don't know how personal Shannon got after. Shannon didn't come out and say he's a bad guy and he deserves to burn or anything like that. But I tend to believe Shannon Sharpe, Pro Football Hall of Famer, who is still very much connected in the Denver Broncos organization and around the NFL. If he's hearing from players that are saying we're over this, then they're over it. Now, that doesn't mean that Russ can't win them back by playing out of his mind next year. Some guys on air in this town want him to be NFL Comeback of the Year. Why wouldn't you? I mean, that would be great to have a career resurgence, because what we're seeing is scary. We've never seen it before. But where I definitely agree with Shannon, I think his teammates are over it. They're over all the extras. They're over the office. They're over the extra hotel rooms for his team. They're over the extra parking spaces. They're over his private staff, including the quarterback coach. They're over some of these extras because winning is no longer there. So it makes some of these guys, and I'm speculating here because I don't know. I've never heard that. They keep that building pretty tight. And that's one thing George Payton is very good at, is definitely silencing any rumors around there from escaping. But Russ he is a celebrity. That's it. I think his celebrity status is fading a lot because he's not winning football games. You're seeing some of these advertisements become less and less. So if Russell Wilson, the celebrity, wants to continue that celebrity, I'm good with it. Win football games. It's a win-win. But when you're not winning football games, man, some of the stuff gets really old.
Talked about at the beginning of the season with Russell Wilson and Nathaniel Hackett both being like, listen, you love the energy, you love the corniness. It's your quarterback. If it gets off the rails, it's going to get ugly in here, and people are going to be grossed out by it quickly. It's the scene in Step Brothers where they're interviewing in the tuxes and John C. Reilly rips a wet, long fart. And he's like, oh, the tuxes now seem kind of effed up. That's where we are. I mean, that's what this season has been. One long wet fart. Not a wet fart coming in here. Silent one. Gotta love the transitions. $5. Thank you so much. Saying, for those of you that bought the BS of Penn or Peyton yesterday, the presser yesterday, I challenge you to watch the Peyton's presser after Vic was fired. Almost word for word the same. Couple things on here. It's obviously the company line. Similar, if not the same person, is writing a lot of the script for this in Patrick Smythe. Shout out to Patrick Smythe, probably one of the best in the business in the PR department there in Denver. A lot doesn't get out, and a lot is, covered pretty well from that internal process there with the PR staff. And this is, I mean, there is still tidbits to take away from that. I don't know what you're talking about as far as buying anything. They're going to try to do it better. They're going to look underneath every stone. They're going to do everything they want to empower somebody and change the culture. I mean, it's just their wants. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. But as far as buying it, I mean, I'm very much a seeing is believing person. They can say whatever they want until the hire is here, and we can be excited as it happens, but you still don't want to write it in pen what the outcome is going to be until we gathered information in games and time to know how it's all coming together.
Yeah, there were some revealing moments in that press conference for sure. And I definitely see what Silent One is saying, because he's referencing George Paton talking about, I could sell this roster. Quote. And that was what George Paton said yesterday. I'm pretty sure that's what he said after Vic Fangio was fired, talking about Denver being a desirable place for a head coaching candidate to want to be. No doubt. Someone wants to be head coach of the Denver Broncos. That line will be out of the door. But what type of coach wants to be a candidate? An experienced big fish in the college ranks that has also gotten to a Super Bowl and played his brother and lost, has had success almost everywhere he's gone, turned quarterbacks who were on the decline or never really started into something. In Jim Harbaugh, that's definitely one way you can go. Or Sean Payton. I don't know how expensive that would be to get Sean Payton here, literally to trade for the Saints, getting his rights, and then the contract. It's got to come with a big fat contract extension. But yeah, there were some revealing moments, to be sure. I loved it when D-Mac had asked, why do you believe in George Paton? I mean, right there would have been a perfect opportunity to bring up some of his positives. Patrick Surtain, we have all the faith in the world in him. He's a Pro Bowl cornerback in the NFL. We're very proud and looking forward to his future. We also really like what he did in free agency, getting K'Wan Williams and DJ Jones here, who have both contributed in their own right. I mean, these are some things that Greg Penner can learn from, too, as he progresses in his career as an owner.
I mean, every single cycle
if you believe real quick, if you believe in him that much, like Walton Penner, Greg Penner is saying, yeah, I believe in him and I value George's opinion. No, you don't. You value his opinion a little bit. Otherwise, you would work really together as a team with your GM instead of saying, I am leading up this head coaching search. I will be over the head coach. Just my opinion.
I mean, he was pretty darn quick to sit back and lean over and look over to George Paton when the two of them are asked about fixing Russell Wilson. He's like, oh, yeah, tell me, is Russell Wilson fixable, Mr. Paton? But yeah, it's crazy times here. We got Naj coming in here. Not so crazy, coming back in and supporting us. Thank you so much. 1999 saying, in my opinion, everyone knows how bad Russ has been, including him. So including Russ. I don't know what people expect him to say. He's been attacked relentlessly by fans, media, people saying it's his wife, saying his teammates hate him. Has to hurt. And we're just talking about, Shannon Sharpe going in on it. We've speculated on some of the stuff. It does have to hurt. But I think that's also, not to be totally callous about it, but you're playing quarterback with a big contract in a team that's, invested a lot in you, and a team that's desperate to get back in their winning ways. And it's gone horribly, horribly, horribly wrong. There's going to be some venom, but that's kind of the name of the game if you are playing professional football. Your life is public, what you do is public, and everything you do is up for overinterpretation and criticism.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And Russ welcomes it. He could stop it real quick, not only by winning football games, not that it's an easy task, but eat that humble pie, man. Please, for the love of God, Russ, look into the mirror. Do some soul searching, because it's you. It's you. You're the problem right now. And I think it's your personality. I think it's your ego. Yeah, I think some things can be cleaned up physically. I think your game philosophically needs to change. But when the Broncos made all these concessions for Russell Wilson to come in here and reinvent himself into some pocket passing quarterback guru, it hasn't worked. So it's time to take some of these things away. Some of the extras have to go away. And it has to start with a head on confrontation and challenge with the new head coach. And you have to have a head coach that's willing to battle Russell Wilson and tell him, look, I'm going to put you in the place. I get that you're a quarterback that makes 250, a $250 million with this next contract. But right now, Russell Wilson is unlimited. He's out of control, unlimited. I mean, what he wants, he gets. I don't think he's a bad man. I don't think he's a bad guy. I do think he cares. But there seems to be a human element missing from Russell Wilson right now. And I think his ego is the biggest part of that.
Yeah, I mean, hard to speculate on it. Something's broken right now. Maybe it's even partially his body. I saw that it was Daniel Jeremiah and Dan Orlovsky talking on Twitter today about what I would do with Russell Wilson. Dan Orlovsky said, well, how do we fix Russell Wilson? Move to a more movement pocket-based scheme. You'll get him on the move. And then Daniel Jeremiah is like, can he do that anymore? Based on the tape that I've watched, I don't think he is that guy anymore. And Dan Orlovsky said, and there's the kicker. So he's like, you're talking about hypotheticals here beyond the skill set of what this guy is showing on tape anymore. And he looked slow. I went back and found some clips from week 1 this season, and I saw people saying, "Oh, it's the shoulder injury, it's the hamstring." Experts talking about that week 1 matchup well before the injuries. Like, man, Russell Wilson looks heavy. Russell Wilson looks slow. This is not the same quarterback that was in Seattle, and that was before the injuries. Week 1 in Seattle this year, so it's rough, and I do feel bad for him, but at the same time, put it in perspective, he's going to be okay. Also, hopefully his mental health is fine, but I mean, he should be okay. 19 EHF, $10 coming in saying, I feel bad for Russ. He thought he was coming in to compete, to complete a team. And like Brady and Stafford, he was a missing piece. He bet on himself and believed the offseason hype. He also wanted more power and say in the offense, and Denver was willing to give it to him. One of the reasons he waived the no trade clause, came in here and signed the contract. Denver did what his asked. They brought in the Hackett made some concessions as far as what the scheme was going to be. They worked together. The head coach or the quarterback and final say on a lot of things, and it's gone to crap this year.
Well, and he was steering the offseason hype, 19. Don't forget about that, bro. I mean, it's one of these things where he comes in, he's like talking about winning all these Super Bowls and
Playing
what he
12
wants
years.
to do. He's setting these expectations. So when he falls on his face, you're damn right we need to criticize him, and he deserves it. That doesn't mean a little tough love isn't going to bury him. And again, I don't think either one of us have said we're done with him. We think toss him to the side of the road, stick a fork in him. I'm not there yet. I just think this man would do so many favors for himself, self-serving favors, if he did some soul searching. I think he's a good guy. I think teammates want to be close with him, but he does seem to put himself in a special category on this team of I'm Russell Wilson. I am the quarterback. I didn't earn anything here, but this is the way we're going. And I commended him. You commended him. A lot of Broncos country commended him for that courageous try to score scramble on the 2-yard line against the Chiefs in which he was concussed. But that's the flash that Greg Penner's talking about when him and George Payton are up there saying, we've seen flashes of Russ play well. Flashes is something we talk about second round, maybe first round quarterbacks, not a 9-time Pro Bowler who's taking up all of your money and all your cap space. Michaela Israel, good friend. Thank you so much for joining the show. $2 super. Shannon Sharpe, Uncle Shay for coach. That would be insane.
Yeah, that would be very much insane. That honestly, I'm here for it. If they'd have made him the interim coach, that just would have been hilarious. Obviously, Penner's done being embarrassed, so went with somebody much more low key, but just embrace the chaos at this point. Paul coming in saying hello, Nick and Luke and Scott. Good to see you. We got Andrew coming in here, $5 saying any chance the Broncos go after Nick Saban? He's done everything in the NCAA and a big name. Saban failed pretty not spectacularly, but he failed with the Miami Dolphins. And I also feel like Saban has not really been at least at Alabama, a program builder, so to speak. He is not, I guess, only until recently, we haven't seen Saban in that Alabama program deal with talent disadvantages on the field. Also Scott saying Saban 71 years old, total control freak. NFL game doesn't suit him and where he can't be a dictator. Also, Saban's just Alabama brand somewhat recruits itself, and he has massive talent advantage. Jim Harbaugh these last couple seasons, especially with Ohio State, a team that greatly out recruits Michigan, and Michigan's gone in there and punched him in the mouth a few times. So he's also built up programs at 3 different places here, from mediocrity to great heights. So I think Harbaugh is a better fit with that as far as the builder goes. Don't get me wrong, Saban's an incredible coach, but you don't have the massive advantages in terms of talent acquisition in the NFL that you would at Alabama or one of these big time programs.
And you can't boss pro players around. There should be a healthy fear that I really like. Mark Schler talks about that. You've got to have this healthy fear if you want to be respected, and ultimately, the team takes on the identity of the head coach. And I get it. There's only one Bill Belichick. There can't be that dictator. You're exactly right. But I like where your head is at, because you're saying swing for the fences. And I think that's what Greg Penner basically said yesterday. We have unlimited resources with Greg Penner and all those Richie Riches up there in the suite. That's going to do wonders for you in this head coaching search, because money talks and everything else walks. 19 coming back in again, 19 EHF rather. Even if the coach is better, Russell Wilson still needs weapons. Look at the receivers in the AFC and who on the Broncos compares to him. Receivers right away, Nick. I was scratching my head why Cortland Sutton was moved back to the X and Jerry Jeudy kind of had reverted back to his old role before they switched things up a little bit in the middle of the game. And then you see Jerry Jeudy go off and have a great game, I guess, in offensive performance that doesn't really matter. Jerry Jeudy also had some exciting moments of I don't want to say like pounding on his chest, but he was showing that he cared. He was showing that he had some emotion. I think he has a lot of maturing to do. But yeah, receivers on this team, they've got to be better. It can't be Kendall Hinton as your number one guy.
Yeah. Very injured. They could definitely use some more weapons there. It's if the best player on the board when the Broncos are drafting is a wide receiver, then God bless, take that guy. I was trying to find the comment in here. Somebody said the Broncos need to take offensive line with, they didn't say ever. Oh, here we go. Sure, Hank saying only offensive line in the 2023 draft. We have enough elsewhere. You don't have enough elsewhere because you're a terrible team. If you had enough elsewhere, then you would not be sitting here with the second pick in the draft going to the Seahawks. The other thing here, and in theory, yes, I think offensive line is the biggest need on this team this offseason. But unfortunately, folks, this just does not look like a good offensive line draft class at the top. I was talking with Dane Brugler the other day. Right now, do you know how many offensive tackles he had going in the first round? Out of 31 picks.
How many offensive tackles in the first round?
Yeah,
were there
in his first mock draft?
In the first round, were there even 4?
There were 3, and one of them is probably going to play guard. And Peter Skronski. You have Scott's holding up 2 there. You had Broderick Jones and Paris Johnson Jr., who are actually going to go up against each other in the Ohio State versus Georgia game. But this is a really poor top of the offensive tackle class this year. And it's not a great center class either. You have Osiris Torrance, a guard from Florida, who I think PFF just mocked to the Broncos at pick, 28 right now from the 49ers. But people that are screaming for offensive tackles this year, point me to them because I don't see them. Maybe you have Anton Harrison from Oklahoma, but his play is erratic. I don't think he plays with a really tenacious demeanor. He can definitely be weak with his grip strength out there on the offensive line. And also, I don't know if he is versatile to play left tackle and right tackle. You have an absolute monster of a person in DeJuan Jones, the other offensive tackle at Georgia, but he kind of moves a little bit like Frankenstein because he's so big. If you're playing a power scheme, maybe you're interested. He's got an unbelievable wingspan, but he just does not move very well, and he has really big trouble with leverage. That's
just it. Like when you say scheme, we don't know what kind of scheme is going to happen. So like that, I almost cursed. I was going to say all that stuff needs to be addressed right away. And you heard Jerry Rosburg talk about that today. He said he wanted to make some sort of a seismic shift on that offensive line. Well, getting rid of the offensive line coach is certainly a way to do it. So, yeah, it depends on what kind of scheme they're running because so many different offensive linemen can do different things in different schemes. You're also going to see guys either significantly help their draft stock or hurt it here in the next few months with the NFL offseason right around the corner, specifically Senior Bowl, Shrine Bowl. And then after that, you get into the Combine, you get into Pro Days. So that stuff is just around the corner, and we are just about wrapped up. 59 minutes going in. Let's see here. Yeah, I'm seeing offensive line, hire Munchak back.
Sure.
Yeah, this next staff has got to have some cats that have got some validity to them. I can tell you that it's not a good look for the Denver Broncos right now if they're going to bring in no all sizzle, no steak, or a complete farce, if you will, in just a retread guy. I've heard Jim Caldwell's name up there. That doesn't do it for me. You've got to give this fan base a reason to believe. That's what Joe Ellis did when he hired John Elway. And no, Peyton Manning's not going to be hired to run this team as GM. I would be surprised. I would be willing. I would be definitely wanting to talk to Peyton Manning if I was Greg Penner, maybe bounce some opinions off of him. Heck, maybe even pick up the phone and call Mike Shanahan. Say, I'm the new owner of this team. Can you tell me a little bit about your opinion of some coaches up and coming in this league? Reach out, ask for some help. You've got to figure that out. And him and George Payton have got to work together. Quick game predictions, because we have hardly talked about the Chiefs at all. You guys know the Broncos aren't going to go into Arrowhead and win this game. I've got 38-12 Kansas City Chiefs, and I think the backup quarterbacks and different players finish the game, much like in the Rams. I don't think you're going to see the debacle between frustration on the sidelines. That's one thing Jerry Rosburg said right away, Nick. He put that to bed, and I appreciate and respect that. He addressed Dalton Reisner, he addressed Brett Rippon, Latavius Murray, and Randy Gregory. So I don't think it's going to be any nonsense out there, but just more bad football.
You're probably right. And Tim Durr says 58-9 Chiefs. I mean, God, it might as well be 100-2. Who knows? But appreciate you guys coming in today, joining us on Wednesday. Obviously, so much news. We didn't even get to the injury report today. So many guys out there, and
they're all hurt.
Man, pretty much. If they're not on IR, they're on the injury report, unfortunately. But make sure you're following Luke and I on Twitter. Luke is at Luke Patterson LP. I'm at Nick Kendell MHH. Also, make sure you're following us at MHH Pod, and of course at BF_pod. The one that we want is not up here.
No, this
follow
ain't
us.
This
yeah,
ain't the Bronco. I've been trying to get a beanie from y'all for a long time. Scott's rocking that Broncos for breakfast beanie. Guys, get on over to the huddleuppod.com store. Grab yourself a hat, grab yourself a shirt. Always good last minute late gifts too, especially for those of you that have forgotten and still need to get Christmas gifts or things of that nature. Head on over. Again, the mothership at milehighhuddle.com, Twitter at milehighhuddle. Reach out to Scott at Scout Kennedy, Nick Kendell at Nick Kendell MHH, yours truly at Luke Patterson LP. Nick, I know you guys will give your predictions a little bit later in the week. And yeah, man, fun show. John Clay eventing coming in with that sound horn buzzer. Hendon Hooker in the third round?
Maybe. Yeah, I think it's possible. I think that's about the area you'd look. He's a little bit older. He's coming off the ACL injury. I don't really love that Josh Heupel offense as far as translation to the NFL. They throw it vertically. They have wider sets than pretty much every single offense in college football. That doesn't translate super well over to the NFL game. I mean, we saw it with Drew Lock's best season at Missouri. Oh, bombs away. It looks good. How many intermediate throws with touch and timing and processing and anticipation were on the tape with him? Not many, but you saw the tools and traits because he could throw it with arm talent down the field without, guy open, single coverage, boom, gone. So there's a lot of questions with Hendon Hooker because of the offense he ran it at Tennessee, but in third round, seems like a great kid as well. I'd be about it.
Yeah. And you got to switch the quarterback room up. Brett Rippon, sorry, your time has come.
A quarterback.
Yeah, it's time. You got to, first thing of order, right? You got to start finding Russell Wilson's replacement because we didn't talk about it on the show, and I know we're closing it up, but Russ is coming back next year after next season. Options at least open a little bit and how to deal Russell Wilson if he is in fact still on the decline.
Yeah. Going to be crazy to see what happens, and another interesting offseason ahead of us, folks. like I was saying earlier, make sure you're following us on Twitter, but it's at MHI_pod. I'm going to have to blame Chad for that one because I clicked the third one here and it's not our show. What's going on? Also follow us at Mile High Huddle, of course. And if you're on Facebook, join us at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod. And as the ticker says underneath there, if you're joining us on YouTube today, or you have YouTube, or if you've ever heard of YouTube or visited the site before, make sure you head on over there, subscribe to Mile High Huddle, like this channel, like this show, and share it on your social media platforms. We appreciate the heck out of you guys. Luke, always fun to have you in here and joining you on here. It feels like just been off and on with the Christmas holiday schedule here, but getting back to some normalcy here now. Thank God. Thanks for holding down the fort. Glad to hear that you had a good holiday season. Any final thoughts before we get on out?
See you next year, Broncos country, right? I get that old man joke in there now. Everybody have a safe and happy New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. Those Broncos play New Year's Day. Make sure you are around because your safety matters. The safety of other people matters. Celebrate responsible, and just be good to each other, folks.
Be good to each other. Continue to choose compassion and kindness. Go Broncos.